I love black and white photos. So for a period when I first started photography, I pretty much exclusively shot in black and white. Mostly because I still hadn't figured out how to edit color photos just right, but also because I felt like black and white images just have a certain look to them that's just timeless. In today's video, I'd like to go over 5 things which should help you get the perfect monochromatic image from taking the photo to editing it. But before we begin, be sure to subscribe to see more great photography content. So when it comes to black and white photographs, you get a lot more freedom and flexibility on how you take photos in some ways and a lot less in other ways. So most notably, obviously, is the lack of color. But having just shadows to deal with means that you are free to tweak the contrast of an image far beyond what would work well in a color photo. So to begin, when taking photos, you should really be focusing on the contrast in a scene. Now, this is also important with color photos as well, but I think with black and white, it makes the biggest difference because a stark, clear, contrasty image can really help it stand out. And honestly, I find that if your frame is too busy, making the photo black and white will just make it so much more difficult for the viewer to actually understand what is happening. If you look at really amazing black and white photos, what you'll always notice is that there is a very strong use of contrast and a differentiation between the light and dark areas of the image. So I found a bunch of these award-winning black and white photos because I just wanted to show you what I meant when it comes to contrast in black and white images. So this is the #1 winner here. And as you can see, beautiful photo, but the cheetah in this more or less the center of the frame, super clean, simple background, nothing too crazy. Then we go down here, look at this staircase coming down. Again, we have one focal point just at the very bottom here, but everything else, like, it's very clear and visually easy to understand what you're looking at when you look at this photo. Look at this one here. This is another perfect example of this. I mean, come on, that's an unbelievable photo, but so much like the shapes and the form and the shadows that they're looking at. The sky is super simple. You don't have anything too crazy here. Look at these giraffes. See how, like, it's just the contrast is just, it's like really easy to tell with black and white because you don't have color to fall back on. Look at this, oh, majestic looking horse. Absolutely stunning photo. All of these images, contrast and the separation of subject and background is really present and really obvious. And I think that's what makes them such strong examples of very good black and white photography. Sticking to simple, clean compositions is honestly the way to go. Now, this is why I really love black and white flash photos. The crazy amounts of contrast in the image makes them stand out and gives them this really beautiful, timeless look. And utilizing a flash when taking monochromatic portraits especially is a really good idea. I actually have a great video on the ins and outs of flash photography, which I'll link below. If you've never shot with a flash before, it's a really good crash course. So if you want to check out a really good example of some amazing black and white portrait photography, the fashion designer Eddie Slimane, his photography for Saint Laurent and also a lot of his personal work is some of my absolute all-time favorite black and white photography I've ever seen. Eddie Slimane's work is just like effortlessly cool, and I especially love these shots that he did of Daft Punk. The thing I think that makes a really amazing black and white photo stand out from just an average one is if you're thinking about the image being in black and white pretty much from the beginning. So rather than just, saying go into Lightroom and edit the photos or whatever, try and think like, how is this image going to look in black and white? One way that you can actually do as well, if you shoot in RAW, you can actually set in your camera, you can set it to a black and white profile, and it'll show you the image in, it'll show you a preview in black and white, on a mirrorless camera at least. But the photos themselves will be saved in full color. So I recently picked up a Nikon ZF, and I'll have some more videos on that coming actually very soon as well. So that's a camera I've been really excited to play with a bit more. But what's really cool on that camera, it has a black and white switch, so you can really easily switch the camera to black and white. But if you're obviously recording in RAW, the photos still come out as color. So this is actually a really good way if you're having a little bit of trouble visualizing what the image might look like when you set it to black and white. Turn on that mode, and then even in the future, if you decide, hey, I actually didn't want this photo in black and white, I want it in color, you're all good because it's saved in a RAW format. Now, let's jump onto the computer and discuss editing monochrome images. Okay, so let's talk about how I got to this image because it didn't always look like this. So starting with a completely raw, untouched image. This is from the Nikon D200 with the 35 1.8 DX lens. So very, very cheap setup, but actually quite solid. This has a CCD sensor, and if you saw my previous video, you'll see just how well it compares to the Leica M8 and M9. So that's a really good video you should definitely check out after this one. But to start off with, first of all, what we'll do is we'll go over here to our basic tab and we'll just hit the black and white button. But hang on, that doesn't look like the photo that you just showed. This is where we go on to our first little tool that you need to really be aware of. Now, this is the tone curve here. So with the tone curve, it really, basically, if you turn this into an S shape, so once we start pushing down on the darks and then start pushing up on the lights, like a real subtle S curve, this starts to give us that real nice high contrast look. So this is looking a little bit too bright. So what we can do is we'll bring our exposure down just a little bit, raise our contrast up as well, because I like a nice contrasty black and white photo. It's up to you to decide how you want to do it as well. We can tweak our highlights as well, just here too. And as you can see, that's already starting to look a hell of a lot better than it did before. What we can also do is we can add a little bit of clarity as well. And one thing that you'll notice with a black and white photo, so if we switch this from monochrome to color, is you'll notice how aggressive this looks in color. And that's just because you have so much more latitude and flexibility with black and white photos. So don't be too scared to push this pretty far, because in monochrome, everything's gonna look a lot more natural. So straight away, look how good that looks. That looks already brilliant. But now we can move on to the next little tool in your arsenal for making these perfect black and white photos. And that is down here. This is your black and white mixer tool. Now, the black and white mixer tool is very, very straightforward. These values affect the original image. The brighter you go, the brighter the color will become. So to be a little more practical about it, let's say we want to, the skin is looking a little bit dark. So the skin is a mixture of what, red and orange. So if we just, and like lips, for example, as well. So if we start to pull up on the red slider, you'll notice Rebecca's lips and areas around her eyes and stuff start to get a little bit brighter. And conversely, if we start to sort of darken it, they start to get a little bit darker. This is obviously a very fine line. You don't want to go too crazy with it, but I like to just raise this a little bit orange as well. So you'll notice you start to see the skin starts to get a little bit brighter. So another really good use of the black and white mixer tool is if you're doing landscapes, for example. So with this image here, if we want to, so this is what the original image looks like. But when I shot this photo, I was thinking for black and white. So there's that high contrast that you see. If we go to the black and white mix here and we start to say we bring the blues down, you'll notice that it starts to give you this really dark, moody sky. If you've ever seen any of Ansel Adams images, this is kind of what that look was, that real dark, intense sky. So let's just quickly go back to this image of Rebecca here. Once your image is looking the way you want it to look, what you can actually do is you can go up here to the develop tab, create a preset, and actually save this look as a preset. And then that way you can apply it to your other images. But you can also check out my Lightroom presets. I actually have 2 Lightroom preset packs out at the moment, and in both of them there is a black and white preset. So in the first preset pack, it's called Monochrome. Right now it looks very, very bright, so let's bring the exposure down. And as you can see, it starts to look similar to what I showed you before. And we've also got Timeless in the second pack. So Timeless is a little bit more of a softer, more like the shadows are, as you can see here, the shadows are lifted a little bit for Timeless. So it's, if you want it to kind of, I guess, look timeless, that was sort of my thought with that preset. I sort of jump between which one I like the most. Monochrome, I'm really, really proud of. Timeless is nice too. Both of them look fantastic on any images. And the link to get these presets will be in the description below, and every purchase helps to support me and this channel. I just want to show you 2 more things. So first thing that I want to show you is film grain. So if we go down to the bottom here, to our effects tab, this is where we can add grain to the image. Now, this is a CCD censored camera, so the grain naturally is going to be really nice. And as you can see, the grain is really nice, but I personally like to add just a little bit of grain. For me, I find that if we bring the grain up to about 35, that's where you start to get this very nice, organic, almost like a 400 ISO film stock kind of grain. If you've ever shot with like HP5, Ilford HP5, I feel like it looks similar to this, or maybe like a Tri-X or something. I like the way that this looks. Now, you've also got 2 other parameters for grain. So we've got size. Now, if we go to size, as you can see, if we start to bring that up, it's like blurs the hell out of the image because that's every single individual grain particle is being blown up. So I like to keep that around 25. I don't really touch that, but we've also got roughness as well. So with roughness, once we start to bring that up, that starts to give us more of an aggressive grain. What I find personally, if you want to bring this down to like 15-ish, that gives you a more of a medium format kind of grain. And then 35, and then if you want to start going crazy with it and making it look like 3200 ISO film, for example, you could probably push the grain even further. But I find that really aggressive grain kind of takes away from the image sometimes. So I find that 35 is a really nice sweet spot for me personally. And now for the final little tip that I wanted to give you for making your black and white images look absolutely perfect is the use of a masking tool. Now, the great thing with the masking tool is you've actually got in the new Lightroom is you've got this option where you can select people and it'll detect like a person's features. So as you can see, we can really go through and select what we want to edit. Now, what I really like to do is I like to go to the iris and pupil and select this and create a mask, and then go down here, a little bit of sharpness just to the eyes, and also a little bit of contrast. And it's really subtle, but I think in black and white especially, really makes the eyes pop. It makes them look really nice. You can even brighten them a little bit if you wanted to, although I would be very sparse with the exposure. I wouldn't go too crazy because it, whoa, looks like you've got laser beams coming out of our eyes. We don't want to go too crazy with this. So maybe, yeah, 0.14 is probably all right. So what you can also do as well with the masking tool, you can actually go into here, and if you use the brush, so if you want to start to like, if there are certain parts that you want to selectively darken, use the brush tool for that. So let's say we want her hair to look a little bit darker. What we can do here is we can go like this, and then ever so slightly bring that down. And also I reckon add a little bit of contrast as well. And that's giving her a little bit more darkness in the hair, if that's the look that we want to go for. So now, as you can see, I reckon that looks pretty bloody good. Another way that you can do very subtle retouching is if we go back to the people tab and we go select people, and then we just select facial skin and body skin. So just the skin aspects themselves. And then what we do is we go down here and we actually reduce the sharpness itself. So if for the eyes we increased it, here we just reduce it ever so slightly, and then reduce the texture as well. Yeah, and I think that looks really nice. So as you can see, you get this very soft kind of look to the image, which I think looks really nice. And then maybe just a little more darkness. Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful looking black and white portrait. Well, that's all for today. I hope these tips have been helpful, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you got any special techniques on how you shoot black and white photos? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week, and have a great day.